Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, coming to you live from my dorm room, Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, where I'm a junior. And I've been invited to speak tonight because I am also a survivor of a bone marrow transplant for aplastic anemia. I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia when I was 4 and was on treatment at the Jimmy Fund until I had my bone marrow transplant actually in New York City when I was 10. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the sort of mental, social, emotional, the more intangible aspects of survivorship, especially as it pertains to this transition period from high school to higher education and adulthood. The reason that I'm speaking tonight is not because I'm some sort of fountain of wisdom on how you should live your life. I'm drawing a lot of this presentation off things I wish people had told me before I encountered the college application and transition process, and things that I've gotten from friends who are also survivors that they wish they had known before they embarked on this phase of their lives. So know that this is all with the benefit of time and hindsight and a couple hundred hours of therapy. There may be things that I say that click and are helpful to you, and there may be things that aren't. I invite you to take what's helpful and leave what isn't. And I hope that you all have a fantastic time. It's really is exciting, and there's a lot of really cool opportunities that come with college and adulthood. So try to remember that and enjoy it while you're in the midst of it, though I know it can be hard sometimes. The first aspect of this whole process that tripped me up was right from the get-go with the applications. And I think everybody at this age is in a very identity-forming period. You're figuring out who you are and what you are and what you want to be. But for me, figuring all of that out was complicated by this medical history that I had. That I was struggling with where to hold this experience in my life. I think one of the sort of double-edged swords of being a survivor when you're still a kid is that you have so much life in front of you, but that also means you've got a lot that you haven't experienced yet and a lot of growing still to do, and as you grow, you sort of have to allow the experience to grow along with you and rehash it as your brain sort of gets more and more advanced. And, of course, one of my rehashing periods lined up right with when I was applying to college, and I had a real sort of crisis of identity about how much a part of my life I wanted my experience with aplastic anemia to be. And that led to me really not wanting to write about it for my college application essays, which was problematic in several ways. One, it created a lot of conflict with my parents because they were like, well, why wouldn't you write about this? It's a great thing to write about. And it also left me, when I had submitted the applications, feeling on the one hand glad that I hadn't addressed it in my essays, but on the other hand, feeling like I hadn't been completely authentic and completely myself in my applications, because the truth is that this experience is a part of who I am, and it's not the only part, but it's a part, and it's a big part. And my advice, I guess, in all of this to you would be to be authentic, to be true to what your experience of your life has been, to tell your story in the way that only you can tell it. even if it doesn't necessarily line up with what you think admissions officers are going to expect, or what you think society expects of you as a survivor or as a, cancer patient. There's a lot of stereotypes out there, but be you, because the more you can be you, the more satisfied you're going to feel with the application. And honestly, being completely authentic and honest can be really, really scary. But I would say that it's worth it. And so if it feels authentic to you to make the central focus of your essay or a portion of your application be your experience with illness, do it. And if it doesn't, feel free to attack it tangentially through some sort of volunteer work you've done, or how you feel it affected the relationship with people in your family or other people in your life. Or don't tackle it at all if you don't think that it has been a relevant part of your life. The other thing sort of related to this that I really wish I had known is, one, I am a junior and have never laid eyes on the people who read my application at Wesleyan. I think I went into the process thinking that the way I did my application would label me for the rest of college, and that was a huge part of why I didn't want to talk about my illness. But they don't, stamp your forehead with whatever you wrote your essay about when you walk in the gate the first day. Who you are in your application and who you are at school can be two totally different people, or they can be the exact same person. It's entirely up to you. The other important thing is that I was really concerned about writing about my illness in my essay because I didn't want pity. I didn't want to feel like I had gotten into college on pity. I wanted to get in on merit, whatever the heck merit means. And one of the things I sort of ended up realizing is that a portion of my merit as a person does have to do with this experience that I've had and how I've handled it. If you think of your life like a hurdle race that you're sort of running along with all of your peers, they put a bunch of extra hurdles in front of you that were, this diagnosis and treatment and everything that went along with that experience. And yet, here you still are, on track to graduate from high school, reaching for higher education, and that is a form of merit. It's something to be proud of. It's something to own as a part of you. One of the biggest problems I encountered is that during the application process, I got kind of fixated on this stereotypical story arc that the popular imagination thinks that you have as a survivor, where you come back better than ever and then go off to these incredible successes in your life. And for me, that ended up translating to going to a really great college and just, doing so well and absolutely blowing everybody out of the water with my abilities. And, it took me a long time to realize that it's not accurate or realistic. I just need to do the best for me, and I need to keep in mind that I was the one going to school and that I needed to be happy with the choices that I was making and not just apply somewhere because I felt like it fit what I was supposed to be doing. And that other people, when they're asking me about colleges, even if it feels like they have that in their heads, a lot of times I'm sort of putting that on them and they're just making small talk. And so the people who are asking me where I was applying are the same people still asking me where I go to school. And that also, even if they were sort of imagining those things about me, that didn't mean that I owed it to them to live up to what they were imagining. All you really owe anything to is yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself and focused on what it is you really want and getting the most out of your college experience, because it is yours. The other thing that you'll be contending with, probably, if your experience is anything like mine, is all of these reactions to your graduation that people are having. And obviously, you know, your parents are going to get a little teary, and so are your grandparents, and your aunts and uncles will be proud of you and send you cards with checks in them, and that's exciting. But because of your life experience, depending on the degree to which you made it public, other people may also be getting teary and coming up to you and talking about all that you survived and went through and overcame in order to get to this point. And like I was saying before, yeah, you had some extra hurdles. But at the same time, I really hated it when other people would, like, point it out to me or make a huge deal of it. True story, at a graduation party for a classmate of mine, her grandmother, who I'd met maybe 4 times in my life, walked up to me and after finding out who I was, grabbed my hand and said, "Do you know that you're a miracle?" I was like, how am I supposed to react to this? So it might happen, and it might really bother you if you're anything like me. It took me a really long time to figure out why it bothered me so much, and in the end, what I figured out is that I didn't want to feel like other people were seeing me one-dimensionally. Like, the only thing I had ever done in my life was survive aplastic anemia. And what I eventually came around to realize is that people who are relative strangers to you are kind of always going to see you one-dimensionally. You're going to be that kid who does football, or that kid who does dance, or that kid who was on the student council, or that kid who had that weird illness. But what allowed me to sort of be okay with it and deal with it was that my family and my friends and the people who really cared about me didn't see me one-dimensionally. They saw all of my dimensions. And so when the vice principal called me out as an exemplar of perseverance in one of his graduation speeches, afterwards my friends were cracking jokes like, "Oh, hey, nice shout out in the speech, Catherine," and I was able to roll my eyes and go, "Yeah, I loved it," and then we moved on. They appreciated me for everything that I was, and my family was proud of me for everything I had done from kindergarten up through graduation, and, you know, aplastic anemia, a part of it, but not the whole. So, made it through the application process, you survived graduation season, and now it's time to actually go to school. This is really exciting and super fun, but there's also a lot of new things that you'll have to be dealing with, that include living on your own for the first time, not having your mom to wake you up in the mornings, different academic expectations, all of that. And then, of course, because, you know, it's how it works, being a survivor means you have a little bit extra on top. And that extra will probably take the form of things like having to take care of your own medical care for the first time. And sometimes it can feel like a lot. Sometimes it can feel like a really huge burden that you have to make phone calls and schedule doctor's appointments and squeeze your follow-up care in and around your college breaks, and that can be really frustrating, and especially when you're sort of acutely aware that your peers at school aren't doing that kind of thing. And I don't have a lot of advice for that, other than one time when I was feeling really frustrated and upset that I had to do all this other junk that my friends didn't have to, I texted one of my friends from camp, who's also a transplant survivor, and just said, "Does it ever, dawn on you that you have to do way more doctor's appointment crap than, everybody else that you know?" And she texted back, "Yeah, it sucks." And that was enough to sort of get me past that point of frustration. It was enough just to know that there are other people out there who are dealing with what I'm dealing with. My other quick piece of advice on the medical front is practice. So, before you actually leave for school, make some phone calls to doctors and whatnot. And the other piece of advice that I wish somebody had given me before I sort of stumbled upon this idea last year is make yourself one of these. I refer to it as my medical crib sheet or my medical resume, but it's just a document that I just made in Word that has all of the information about everything that happened to me, and then, for me, has contact information for all of the people that I see, because it was really frustrating to always have to, like, Google my doctor anytime I needed to make a phone call, and having it all in one place is really handy. And then the medical summary of my history is really great, because anytime I go to a new doctor, I don't have to remember things, I just hand that to them. And I ran it by my long-term follow-up docs before I started handing it out, and I said, yep, that looks great, and every doctor I've given it to has given me great feedback on it. The other thing that, if your experiences like mine might be new to you, is talking to other people about your medical history. I'm from like a comically small town, and we only had one middle school and one high school, so all of the kids basically knew what was up with me, and so I hadn't really had a lot of experience with telling other people about my medical history. And the little experience I had been really difficult for me because I got really focused on trying to find the right way to do it and the right way to tell people and figuring out the right timing. And the sort of unfortunate truth is there is no right way to do it. There is no good timing. And the most important thing, I think, to remember is that the other person's reaction has way more to do with them and what's going on in their life and their head and their past experience than it has to do with you. So try really hard not to take the reaction personally, even though I know that's really difficult, and I'm always like, oh god, did I say it wrong? Blah. But it's them, not you. I think the big keys are to be authentic to what your experience has been. Don't feel the need to like downplay or exaggerate it. Say what you feel. And be approachable, because in the moment they might be a little shocked, but they might have questions later. And then just be yourself so that they can get to know you for all of your dimensions, this being just one of them. The last thing I want to tackle is sort of the biggest issue, and the one that I think is the one that I think goes the most unspoken in the survivor community, and that's emotional late effects. We hear a lot of talk about the medical and physical late effects of treatment, and you probably are getting followed and tested for all sorts of heart problems and hormonal problems and eye problems and this, that, and the other thing. But there isn't a lot of attention paid to your emotional state as a result of your treatment. And the unfortunate truth of it is, having a catastrophic illness is a traumatic experience. And for many people, that trauma doesn't manifest until many years later. And for me, it was right around this sort of transition between high school and college. And I guess the piece of advice I have, or the things that I would have wanted to hear, are that this is normal. Studies put the incidence of these kind of issues in survivors at somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 20. So you're not alone, you're not weird, you're not supposed to feel this way. How you feel is totally acceptable and normal, no matter what it is. The other thing is that this timing is really common, and it's really terrible timing, because it's exactly when you want to sort of be like charging off into your future. Your brain is like, let's start dealing with your past. And that can be really frustrating, but it is a really common time to have this come up. So know that you're not abnormal and you're not alone, and And then the other thing I would say is that you deserve the best possible quality of life. End of story. And so if you feel like your experience with illness is having an emotional impact that's making it hard for you to focus, hard for you to sleep well, hard for you to eat well, hard for you to enjoy social time with friends or anything, if it's making you preoccupied with thinking about relapse or thinking about illnesses of other people, you have the right to seek out help and to find ways to make that better. And the other thing I would say is that it does get better. Absolutely, it does get better. When you seek out those resources, it does get better. I can speak from experience in saying that things have gotten so much better, so much faster than I ever would have thought when I started out seeking counseling and seeking to sort of deal with these emotional late effects. And it has made an enormous difference in how much I'm able to just enjoy college and take advantage of everything that it has to offer. So I'd really encourage you to pay attention to that, because it can sneak up on you, and to really be willing to seek out help if you feel like you need it. So, to sum up, my biggest piece of advice would be to advocate for yourself, which means ask for help if you need it, know what you need to do to take care of yourself and do it, and be honest and authentic to what your experience has been. The pieces of advice I've gotten from other survivors are that everything gets easier, and the challenges that you've faced have given you tools to face challenges now. Recognize that, take advantage of that. Don't hide who you are. Be proud to be a survivor. The illness you had doesn't define you, but it is a part of you. And don't be afraid to share that, and don't let anything hold you back going forward. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It doesn't make you a lesser student, it makes you a better student because you're taking advantage of the resources that are available to you. And finally, as much as being a survivor adds extra things to your college experience, it is, for the most part, a college experience like everyone else's. So take advantage of the opportunities to be in classes, to get to know fascinating people, to take trips, to really learn and grow and expand your horizons, because I would not trade the experience that I've had despite the difficulties that have been present, because I've learned so much and grown so much and met so many awesome people. Thanks again to everyone for watching. Thanks to the School Liaison program and everyone who organized this event for inviting me to speak. My contact information is available, so although I couldn't physically be here, I am available to answer questions. And I wish all of you all the best in your college search process and everything beyond that. Thanks!